Today, we're going to talk about one of the more underrated parts of the Chicago Bulls 2026 offseason and team building, and that's pick number 15. I understand pick number 4 is getting the most attention because it's pick number 4, but that's a pick that's kind of outside the Bulls' control on who's going to fall into that top 4. But at number 15, it leaves the Chicago Bulls a lot of different options and avenues that they can go. Do they just go best available? Do they go player with the highest floor? Do they go player with the highest ceiling? Do they go more raw prospect? They're going to have to take a little while to develop. Well, there's 4 prospects on today's episode that we want to talk about in Cameron Carr, Karim Lopez, Morez Johnson, and Jayden Quaintance. We're also going to throw in Ebuka Okorie in there as well. We'll talk about all those guys plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the start of the season. We can only do that with you guys. About a little over 40% of you guys that watch the daily videos are not subscribed to the channel. A lot of people think they're subscribed because I post every day. I pop up in their algorithm, but just double check that. Hit that subscribe button. Help a brother out. With that said, though, while everybody's kind of waiting on pins and needles on what the Chicago Bulls are going to do with their head coaching situation, and I think that it is a valid, criticism there. Like, there are Bulls fans that are concerned that the Bulls are going to miss out on candidates. And, while I take a more patient approach, I know that you have the study long, study wrong, right, thing, but I think also, you want to do your due diligence in this. And here's what I'll say. The Bulls have amassed so many really top-tier candidates that as of right now, the only team that's hired, there's been other teams that's hired, but off the Bulls candidate list was the Orlando Magic. That's Sean Swinney going to the Orlando Magic. But I think when you factor in that the Orlando Magic are a team that's kind of ready-made, they're in win-now mode, it makes sense for Sean Swinney, whose team is now in the NBA Finals, to kind of prioritize that. I think, with the Mavs, you could make, of course, the conversation that the Mavs job with Cooper Flagg may be a little bit more alluring than the Chicago Bulls job. And I'm not going to make a big argument if that's the case that you want to make there. And of course, you have the Portland Trail Blazers. You have the Brooklyn Nets. Signs that I'm starting to hear is that, that the Portland Trail Blazers could acquiesce to Tiago Splitter's demands, which is the right thing. Like, Tiago Splitter being on the market shouldn't even be there. So, if Tiago Splitter does go back to the Portland Trail Blazers and re-sign there, I don't want to hear any Bulls fans say, oh, my God, the Bulls missed another one, because technically he's still under contract with the Portland Trail Blazers. Until they hire a new coach, even with him being the interim head coach and assistant, he is still under contract with that Portland Trail Blazers team. So if he ends up being moved over from interim to the head coach, that's not something that we're in the Bulls' control anyway, right? So that may be the next domino that we see is that Tiago Splitter may end up just staying in Portland because that franchise reportedly is having kind of hard trouble finding any coaching candidate that wants the low contract that they want to offer. So why not just stay with Tiago Splitter? So it seems like that's something that could be there. So another coach off the Bulls list could come off there sooner rather than later in Tiago Splitter. And then that would leave, of course, the Dallas Mavericks situation, the Brooklyn Nets situation. And so the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a one to watch, right? Because they can go more proven head coach because, they want to develop Cooper, but they want to do it in structure. They still have some pieces there like Kyrie Irving, and this is the last year. This draft is the last year that they have full control over their own first round pick. So they have every intent, and it would just make sense for them to, be trying to win. So they could bring in a more, proven head coach, or they can go the route of younger kind of coach that can grow with Cooper Flagg and that type of thing. So it'd be interesting to see when the Dallas Mavericks make their hire, right? And if that's the next domino to fall before the Chicago Bulls. I think the way some Bulls fans talk about it is like, hey, they had control. Like, Sean Swinney decided to go to Orlando, and that decision would have probably been there even if the Bulls did offer a contract, right? Like, that's the way that I look at it. Before the Dallas Mavericks, who, their pick, they don't have full control over their pick in 2027. It's only top 2 protected, or it's going to Charlotte. They the OKC Thunder have the right to pick swap with the Dallas Mavericks in 2028. Their pick's going to Houston in 2029, right? And then in 2030, the San Antonio Spurs have the right to swap with their pick. So they don't have control of their own first-round pick until 2031. So they do have the Lakers pick in that time. They will have the OKC's Thunder's pick in 2028 if the Thunder pick swap with the Dallas Mavericks. And then they have a chance to get Golden State Warriors pick in 2030 if it's 21-30. So, they have other picks that they can offer, but with that team not having control over their own first-round picks, they have every benefit for them to just go ahead and try to win, see what's going to happen there, and develop the right way. So they're probably not going to be a tanking team. So we'll see what happens in regards to that and where that ends up taking the Chicago Bulls. But overall, the coaching search is where everybody's waiting for. We'll see when that guy ends up getting hired. I can't wait to see who ends up being the hire there personally. But it's at this point, it's a wait and see. And Bryson Graham really seems to be doing his due diligence. I made the joke in the Discord that if that it's probably going to be announced on like some random Thursday or Wednesday at like 10 p.m. We're all going to be like, oh my God, wait a second. And then I'll have to create a random live stream. So without that said, though, let's move on. Let's get into this episode, man. I want to talk about this. So Elias Schuster, who's one of my favorite Chicago Bulls writers, had an article on 4 players that could go at number 15 at the Chicago Bulls. It could be absolute steals, right? And I think that the top 4 pick has the spotlight. It's a top 4 pick. It's going to have a spotlight. This is a very deep draft, especially in that top 4, and it's going to have the spotlight, right? Number 15 is where you want to find real value, or where you could find real value, right? Especially in a deep draft like this, you can get somebody who has the upside of being a 8-10-year starter in the league when it comes down to that, right? With the Bulls having those multiple first-round picks, number 15 is a major opportunity to further add talent to this team, right? We need two-way upside. We need the athleticism. We need front court depth, right? We need those things. And so this is a year where pick number 15 becomes almost just as important as anything else that we're doing this offseason. So I want to talk about these candidates that Elias Schuster put out here. And then I want to talk about one specifically and how he's most commonly mocked, and we've even heard that the Bulls could be interested. And that's, first off, Cameron Carr, right? At this point, everybody knows about Cameron Carr. The story's out on Cameron Carr. He was one of those guys that coming into the draft process was slated as more of a late first-round pick. Some even had him going second round, early second round, as this process started. And then the draft combine happened. And the everything that he did, the shooting drills, everything really stood out. And then it was the scrimmages where he stood out yet again in those scrimmages, right? Cameron Carr, his athletic testing is what made him pop in a major way in the draft combine. You just can't take that away from him. The 6'4" frames, almost 7 foot wingspan, that shows the real defensive upside that he has as a multifunctional defender who can probably guard multiple positions when it's all said and done. Now, he is a little bit slight of frame at the 88 pounds or something like that he measured at. He's going to have to put on some weight, as all these players are as they go through their NBA career. That's going to happen, but as he does add into that, there's going to be great ability for him to guard maybe 3-4 positions at the next level, right? He has a fit with Modest Buzelis, Josh Giddey, even Cam Boozer, Caleb Wilson. Like, there's a natural fit for where it seems like the direction of the Bulls roster is going, right? The question is, I think with this, and this is where it factors in the other part of it, is that we are also hearing that the Dallas Mavericks and the Chicago Bulls are 2 teams that have tremendous interest in Cameron Carr, right? That comes from Brett Siegel, who says this: the Bulls have known interest in Carr, along with the Mavericks, sources said. Do not be shocked if even more teams express interest in Carr and attempt to move up in the lottery to select him, especially with the Thunder and Hornets opening to hearing trade offers that come their way. So this is the question that I want to have there, right? Is that if Brett Siegel and what he's saying is correct, and that Cameron Carr is a player that the Bulls are looking at number 15, my question is how aggressive is Bryson Graham willing to be to go out and get him? Is that a thing, or is Bryson Graham more comfortable just taking the wait and see approach, right? Because Bryson Graham, if he does see Cameron Carr as the perfect player, he fits slap, he doesn't need the ball to be effective, he's really grown as an off-ball shooter, all those type of things. If Bryson Graham sees this kid as somebody that is like, no, I want to have this guy on my team, you need to move back into the lottery to do it. The Bulls theoretically have everything. Like, with being the first pick outside the lottery, a team moving down from like number 12, 13, and down to number 15, you could entice them with all those second-round picks that the Chicago Bulls have to offer and those type of things. Would Bryson Graham, or should Bryson Graham, be more aggressive about going up and getting Cameron Carr? That's the thing that I want to throw to you guys in this one, right? Would you be aggressive about moving up to get Cameron Carr if you're the Chicago Bulls? Let me know what you guys think on that down below, because I'm at the point now where I mean, you got to read the board right, because if a guy like Braden Burries, who is now starting to slip and slide as well, if he's sliding, I'm willing to be okay with it. Like don't get me wrong, I love Cameron Carr. I've been talking about him for a while on the show, but if Braden slides so that Cameron Carr can rise up in the draft board, I'm perfectly fine taking Braden Burries as well. That's just my personal opinion, but you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. With that said, right, and then you have other wild cards in regards to it as well. Karim Lopez is another guy. This is on Elias Schuster's list. And Karim Lopez is an interesting prospect for a couple of different reasons, right? Young, only 19 years old, right? And this is a guy that not a lot of people have talked about in Karim Lopez. I have covered him when I've talked about potential number 15 overall picks before. I even think, maybe early in the draft process, I maybe talked about him as a guy that could slide into the second round. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen anymore. Karim Lopez is interesting, though, because I don't see us, if we draft Caleb Wilson, I don't see us going after Karim Lopez. That's just my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong on that. I just don't know if Karim Lopez is the type of player that you still draft if you draft a Cam Boozer, if you draft a Caleb Wilson. I don't know that. Right now, again, like I've said many times before, I could be 100% completely wrong on that, and Karim Lopez could end up being the guy that you need to take there. And if that is, that's great, right? But I think when you look at Karim Lopez, like, there's just so much familiarity in some other areas that we have on this team where I just look at it and say, wouldn't it be better to go after a big there? But at the same notion, right, I'll say this, is that the Chicago Bulls at a place where you go after the best talent. And if Bryson Graham wants to go after a player that he sees in Karim Lopez that he feels has the most upside, and you'll figure it out later, then cool, do that. Now, it does start raising some questions on how you develop, because there's only so many minutes. There's only 96 forward minutes, right? So, eventually you are, with so many forwards, you're going to run out of those guys, of those minutes for those guys. But I think Karim Lopez is a guy that stands out because of all the raw potential that he does have. Now, does he have one NBA skill right now? It depends on how you look at that, right? But at 6'9", 225 pounds, he's not a guy that's slight of frame in a case like that. And he's a guy that can bring some fire and some heat, right? He's a Mexican-born player as well. He did spend the past 2 seasons in the NBL over in Australia. He averaged 11.9 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.2 steals, and 1 blocks in 31 games last season. So he has shown the ability to stat stuff. And that's the thing that you really like for it, right? You don't see the numbers that necessarily blow you away, but you do see the potential in a guy that can affect so many different areas of the game of basketball. And that's what you really want to look at. Like, he's not the most jaw-dropping athlete or anything like that. He's not a great ball handler either. And so the question becomes about, do you want to draft somebody that doesn't look like they have a one elite skill? They just look like they can be that multi-tool forward? Or do you want to go with kind of more proven players that have that skill level? That's what you want to ask there. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. The next guy on Elias Schuster's list is Morez Johnson. Now, you guys know I've talked a lot about this guy before. At 6'9", 250 pounds, a huge wingspan is what he has, right? I think he's 6'9" wingspan. There you go. So this guy, like, he huge when it comes down to it. Morez Johnson is a guy, or 7'3", I think it's 7'3" wingspan. Is a guy that really has a lot to offer when it comes down to it. Like, and I think when you got to look at his numbers, and you got to realize that he played on a team where all those Michigan guys all kind of ate into their own numbers. Morez Johnson, Day Mara, and Yaxel Lindenberg, all those guys kind of ate into each other's minutes and into each other's situation, because that's just how they played basketball, right? So Morez Johnson averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds, 1.2 assists. He shot 62% from the field as well, as a sophomore last year. And of course, he's from Riverdale, so that's the part. He also averaged both 1.1 blocks, both of his 1 year at Illinois and his 1 year at Michigan as well. So, this is a guy that I think has a lot of tools, and I don't want to hear nothing about, oh my God, you can't play a 6'9" guy center. No, yes you can. Yes, you can. Absolutely. With his size, his strength, and what he all can do there, yes, you can, right? And like I said, the fact that Day Mara, Yaxel Lindenberg, and Morez Johnson, none of those guys averaged over 8 rebounds per game, mainly because they all ate into each other's stats and situations, because just the way that they all played there. So because of that, I'm not really worried about it. Even the block number, Morez Johnson could end up turning to a much better blocker. You had a Day Mara with 2.6, Morez Johnson with 1.1, Yaxel Lindenberg with 1.2, right? All those guys protected the rim, And so now you have another guy that you know can fit in with other forwards. And I wouldn't mind betting on Morez Johnson at all. I think Morez has tons of upside for this team, and I would not be mad at him at pick number 15 either. Now, there are some that are going to say, well, Haize, is he even going to fall to number 15? And that's a fair question, but like I've said before, somebody's fallen. There's like 22 players people have going in the top 15. Somebody's fallen. So, we'll see what's going to happen there, but Morez Johnson is a guy that definitely stands out. Power, athleticism, rebounding, switchability defensively. Sign me the fuck up for a guy like Morez Johnson on this team. The next guy up, Jayden Quaintance. Now, this is a guy that has elite defensive upside. Elite defensive upside. I want to be clear here. Jayden Quaintance could end up being the most transformative defender in this entire draft. But the health concerns are real there. Now, the one thing that I say about Jayden Quaintance, in my personal opinion, is that he's had one major injury. That's it. But in that major injury, he tore his ACL, his meniscus, and he fractured his right knee all in one go. And he made a return too quickly last year, and then that set him back and led him to be shut down, right? And so, he had a ninth month recovery, which honestly should have probably took a whole 12 months to recover from that. But this is a guy who was a 5-star athlete, right? A standout at Arizona State. And I've seen so many people that have talked about Quaintance is like, why would you want to go after Quaintance? No, I absolutely no to Quaintance. If you say absolutely no to Jayden Quaintance, it needs to come with parameters. You need to feel confident in those medicals. Jayden Quaintance has talked about it, and he said that it's ready to go. You want the medical staff to look over that, see how they feel about it. You take it right over to Northwestern, where we have some of the best and world-renowned, medical people in there. Go and have them look at it and make your determination at that point. But if the medical part clears, I'm telling you, like I've said many times before, Jayden Quaintance would easily be a top 10 pick if it wasn't for the injury. But at the same time, you can't just ignore the injury and act like it's not there and it's not a factor either. It's definitely a factor. It's definitely there. And you got to figure out if you can live with that. And that's what the Bulls have to do in regards to this one, right? I do think if you pair Jayden Quaintance with either Caleb Wilson or Cameron Boozer, especially with Cam Boozer, being a little bit more slower on switches, a guy like Jayden Quaintance can clean all that up and what he's able to do when it comes down to it. So I really like you look at the fact that the Bulls have lacked a true defensive foundation for years. Jayden Quaintance, Caleb Wilson, it can bring that. Now you have a lack of shooting. That's why Cam Boozer would probably be the more natural fit there. But just figure it out, right? So I want to hear who would you guys be more comfortable taking at number 15 out of those guys, and how do you feel about it? But I do have to talk about another guy that has recently popped up for the Chicago Bulls, and that's Ebuka Okorie, who's a guy that's popped up as somebody that's worth watching. Now, this is a guard, but this is a guard that is not going to, like, when you talk about guards like Cameron Carr, even Braden Burries, you can see those guys playing two at the next level with their wingspan, with the size that they have, their ability to stretch the floor, off ball, shooting, all that type of stuff, and the ability to facilitate. Ebuka Okorie is more so the typical type of pick you get at the 15 in most drafts. A guy that is 6'2", 185 pounds. The scoring upside that he has is legitimate, right? This is a guy that can create in space, all those type of things, and he could be your point guard off the bench easily, right? Easily in regards to that one. The quickness and the handle that he has, all those type of things all point towards a guard that, even with being a smaller guard at 15, you may want to look at and say, hey, let's not overlook this guy and what he can end up being. Last year, he averaged 23 points, 3.6 rebounds, 3.6 assists, shot 34% from mid-range as well. And by the way, even though he's 6'2", he has a 6'8" wingspan, and he's very comfortable defensively as well for that. So I think when you look at this, you got to look at it. He has real upside there, right? Real upside. Now, and maybe this doesn't matter, right? But you have Josh Giddey on this roster, and I can't see them necessarily being in the backcourt together. It doesn't mean that needs to be something that Bryson Graham overlooks the talent if he feels the talent's there, right? A guy that's still developing as a three-point shooter and what he's already done, I think he brings as a playmaker, all those type of things, that the promise that he brings is real, and he's there. And he could be that change of pace guard that comes in for you and dictate some things. He's also a guy that really has a really high free throw rate as well. His aggressive attacking style gets him to the free throw line, which he can make those. But there are concerns about him. His three-pointer isn't consistent yet, right? At times he has a problem with falling in love for bad shots, which a lot of these scoring guards at this age kind of fall into. And the defensive versatility, while he does have that 6'8", wingspan, the height there may keep him from being a versatile defender that you would expect if he was more like 6'4" at that size, right? So you have to look at that. I do think he hasn't shown the polish yet to be a lead guard. So, I know if the Bulls were to draft him, people are automatically going to start oh my God, Josh Giddey's out on his way out. It's already kind of started. I don't think that's necessarily the thing, but he is a talented young guard that can fit what the Bulls are doing, that does make magic with the ball in his hands, and you can figure out some things out at that point, right? So we'll see what happens. I think overall what this is, and I didn't even keep in mind, this is a list that I'm going off of from Elias Schuster and me throwing in the Okorie thing. But I want to say this: this is not the list of all the players that can go there at number 15 for the Bulls either. There's still a number of other players. We haven't talked heavily about Haize Steinbeck. Christian Jr. is another one. Dalen Swain's a player that's falling down some mocks as well that could end up fitting that mode of a wing that's defensive as well. So you have those guys. You have a lot of these guys that can end up being there at number 15 for the Bulls. This is a draft where the talent at 15 is real. It's legit. We just got to see what's going to happen with it. But let me know some of your guys' favorite guys at number 15, even if they're not on the list. We're going to get back into the kind of draft coverage here. So I'm going to get back into like some of the draft breakdowns because it's been a while since we've done it as we kind of lead into this draft. But we're going to do it in a different way. So stay in tune with that one. But this is where the rebuild gets interesting. What Bryson Graham has here is an opportunity to land a lot of different types of players. Cameron Carr, with the explosive two-way off-ball scoring that he does bring. Morez Johnson with the defensive floor and how he'll raise that. Jayden Quaintance, the maybe one of the biggest kind of players in this, like swing players in this draft, that if he does work out and stay healthy, you can get definitely a player that's going to turn into a great defender at that level. So you have all these type of things and different looks that Bryson Graham could do at number 15. The Bulls don't have to play it safe. They could, though. And that could still end up being the right decision. But let me know what you guys think the Bulls should do at number 15. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.